Welcome back to coverage here at Grand Prix Memphis. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke, and we are ready for round 3 action here on the Pro Show. That's right, we're highlighting some of the best players in our game. Take a look at our matchup here. We've got a nice one. Jack Kiefer on the left-hand side, a true up-and-comer on the professional Magic scene. Him and his brothers have been playing with Team Cardhoarder for a while now and doing really well. And Jack has, what is this? White-black Lifegain, it says, Reed. He's playing against Todd Anderson. You'll know him from the Star City Games series, as well as various success at different levels of professional Magic. He's been around forever and also a content producer. He is playing, well, we're calling it blue-black mid-range. Not sure what to make of that yet, but once we get the deck list, we'll know. What do you think from the Lifegain deck here from Kiefer? Any early guesses, Reed?
It's going to be interesting to watch. The card that the term Lifegain makes me think of is Crested Sunmare. 5 mana, 5/5. At the end of your turn, if you gained life, you make a 5/5 horse token. So that's a card that it's been overshadowed by some of the other really powerful 5-drops in Standard, Scarab God, Glorybringer, things like that. But it is an outrageously powerful card when you build around it.
Yes. I mean, all your other horses get indestructible. Like, how do you beat that?
Yeah, if you get 2 in play, it's just
now that is a major
checkmate
issue.
Effectively. And wow, we see Radiant Destiny. So a card a little bit reminiscent of Always Watching, which was a staple when that was legal in Standard. But Radiant Destiny has the additional deck building cost of being a tribal card. You have to name one particular creature type, but it does pump your tokens, as you can see it already doing work with Jack Kiefer's 1/1 Vampire.
Yeah, he surely will have named Vampire with that. If you're going to play a tokens-based strategy, especially around some type of life gain synergies, you're definitely going to want to be on the Vampires, as there's many, many ways to make these little 1/1 Vampires with lifelink. And if you're going to pump them up with cards like Radiant Destiny, they can do serious work. You can really turn each of those into a full card worth of value if you're willing to dedicate a slot to Radiant Destiny. What do you think's going on here with Jack? Nothing? He just didn't play anything?
Well, being in the colors white and black, there are multiple 4-drop instant speed options that he could be representing in Cast Out or Vraska's Contempt. Looks like it was just a little more unassuming Fatal Push there.
Yeah.
But
Gifted Aetherburn's going to get shoved off the edge of the cliff there.
If our prediction is right about Crested Sunmare, it might be the case that hitting 5 mana is when Jack Kiefer's deck is really going to hit its stride.
Yeah.
Could also have Fumigate, you never know, but there's a lot of really powerful options at 5 mana in Standard right now.
Okay, he's going to go with Martyr of Dusk here on turn 5. Not a particularly impressive play, but it can be difficult to get rid of.
Yeah, that's exactly the type of card you want to play alongside something like Radiant Destiny. It means that you have a persistent, annoying body that becomes a little bit more than a persistent, annoying body when it's pumped up, and you're guaranteed that even if it dies to something like an opposing board sweeper or Fatal Push, you still have something left behind.
Ooh, that was Crested Sun there off the top of the library, Reed.
Wow.
Now, I don't know if he has a land for it, because I don't think he played a land last turn, but still, you were right. He has it, and it's in his hand. And he just got Todd to use one of his premium removal spells here, Vraska's Contempt, on the Martyr of Dusk. Obviously a tempting target because of the exile effect. Ooh, here's Gonti. Maybe Todd can get his own Crested Sunmare from Jack.
If Todd's anything like us, he's thinking, what the heck is going on here? Martyr of Dusk, Radiant Destiny, I'm not used to playing against these cards. So he's going to get a little bit of insight from seeing 4 random cards.
Actually, he saw 4 lands.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Which normally would be doing Jack a favor, but he actually does want to hit that 5th land here, I think.
Yeah.
He found Ixalan's Binding off the top of the library, and it looks like he may just fire that off now. Yeah, that's what he's going to do.
This play is mostly just about using his mana. If he's got a hand packed full of 5-drops, he might be thinking, okay, as soon as I draw my land, I'm going to have my next few turns scripted out. So I just want to make sure I keep the board relatively clear, use my mana while I can, and Gonti is not a terrifying threat, but it is definitely relevant.
Well, here's a terrifying threat for you, Reed.
Exactly.
The Big Daddy Scarab Gods hit the battlefield. Another Ixalan's Binding on that. By the way, This is interesting now. The blue-black deck, how does it deal with enchantments? It just usually can't.
Great question, Marshall. This is huge. That's a tremendous play, because this blue-black mid-range deck, as you mentioned, often has 0 ways in the main deck to remove an enchantment from the battlefield.
Yeah.
And to put it simply, this is a Scarab God deck.
Yeah.
This is a deck that plays a bunch of unexciting, unsynergistic cards just to support playing 3 or 4 copies of the Scarab God.
Crested Sunmare on the battlefield, Reed. We did it. Now, it is facing down a Walking Ballista, but it's just a 2/2. Yeah, but these 2 Ixalan's Bindings are really going to lock Todd Anderson out of 2 of his most powerful late-game plays. The good news for Todd, though, he still has the answer for the Crested Sunmare here.
So while this game is certainly not over, I'm going to be really interested to see how Todd navigates this game and what his plan becomes now that he cannot put a Scarab God into play, or at least not easily.
He has one in his hand, too, Reed. Just has to stare at that Ixalan's Binding. Here's Fatal Push again. So players really exchanging resources. And finally, another way to add to the board for Kiefer. Queen's Commission goes on the stack, and that's going to get him 2 Vampires. But remember, we've got Radiant Destiny down on the battlefield. And in addition to Radiant Destiny, he's also got the City's Blessing now. So those are going to be 2/2 lifelink with Vigilance.
Yeah, that's actually goes from a borderline draft comment to a pretty exciting card when you pair it with Radiant Destiny.
Oh, man, that Scarab God just cackling at poor Todd Anderson here.
So Todd opting to use Field of Ruin right now. He's a little bit scared of the Ifnir Deadlands. He needs to be a little bit careful because if the Legion's Landing ever does manage to transform, that's going to be a really big long-term threat that, especially without his powerhouse, the Scarab God, Todd's going to have a hard time beating in a long game.
So what's the point of using the Field of Ruin on an Ifnir Deadlands? He doesn't even have a target for it right now. Just trying to set up for the future, or?
It's a fine question. Now, Todd, I see, has another Gauntly Lord of Luxury in hand, which is a card that the Ifnir Deadlands would be relevant against, but it's turned off by the second copy of Ixalan's Binding.
So it looks like he was going to protect his Glint Sleeve Siphoner here.
That works.
Still, this is risky business for Anderson because, like you said, if Legion's Landing ever becomes Adanto the first for it, that's a major issue for. In fact, I don't see how Anderson could beat that without having access to cards like the Scarab God. You know, his repeatable effects down the stretch. Yeah. Oh, and there's another Crested Sunmare for Jack Kiefer.
And this one looks very likely to trigger at the end of the turn here.
It just did. Oh, man, he gets a free horse out of the deal. That's going to be a 5/5 white creature token. Now, even if Todd has an answer for the original Crested Sunmare, Jack says, well, I got my horse. I think he's going to get on that horse and ride. I don't see how Anderson's going to get out of this thing now.
Yeah.
Now, that other horse does have Indestructible as well, though it wouldn't be the primary target in most scenarios. Though, interestingly, it does get protection from Fatal Push, doesn't it? One of the easy ways for Todd to deal with a token.
Yep, that's true. So Todd has his work cut out for him. Step 1 is certainly going to be Vraska's Contempt on the Crested Sunmare. But as we talked about a turn ago, Jack Kiefer now threatening an attack with 4 creatures, which means the Legion's Landing can transform relatively easily unless Todd has both Vraska's Contempt and Fatal Push.
Now Jackson, the enviable position of being able to kind of go in the tank here, but about situations in which you're very, very far ahead, right? Like he's looking at his Chefette Dunes. He's looking at all of his options. But the truth is, he's in very good shape here. He's got a Dusk Legion Zealot in hand that he can use to kind of see what's up. Oh, and he's got another Crested Sunmare. Jack Kiefer bringing the herd, and that is going to do it. Todd Anderson's going to pack it in. Game 1 going to Jack Kiefer with his brew. Again, he's got a couple of the pros in the room on this deck as well. It's not just him bringing the deck, but pretty exciting. You described it a minute ago, Reed, that moment when you finally get to bring a deck that you've worked really hard on to a real tournament.
Yeah. I got to tell you, Marshall, when we first opened this round and I saw white-black Lifegain or white-black Vampires, I was thinking, okay, this is an anti-mono red deck. Jack Kiefer expects mono red to be one of the best, most popular decks in the Grand Prix field, and he's built a deck to be really good against mono red. My question of course, was how much game does he have against the rest of the field, and putting on a clinic there, beating Todd Anderson with a totally fair draw from Todd Anderson's blue-black mid-range deck. Looks like this white-black Lifegain deck could have some chops.
I mean, if you're thinking about how to set up your deck for different types of matchups and stuff, blue-black mid-range is near the opposite end of the spectrum from mono-red, right? I mean, we're talking about way on the, like, a deck you would expect to be really good against mono-red is unlikely to be really good against blue-black mid-range.
That's right. Blue-black mid-range, a deck that's very much about grinding 2-for-1s. It's disruptive. It plays with plenty of removal, options for duress, negate, other counterspells off the sideboard, and, of course, that really tricky, the Scarab God creature, which is attacking you from a very different angle than the aggressive creatures of mono-red. So, yeah, like you said, opposite ends of the spectrum, a completely different challenge than probably the one Jack Kiefer built his deck for, in the first place, the top priority, but he was able to win game one there.
Yeah, so like you said, a lot of potential here from Jack's black-white Lifegain deck to maybe be a real player as kind of a mid-range deck, I suppose you'd call it.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that makes me really want to keep my eye on Jack Kiefer and indeed all the whole Kiefer family is not only are they great, talented, hardworking players, up-and-comers, we know there are a lot of those in the world, but they also have this great support network. They get to play with each other. They have support from their family. They get to play with other pros, and as you mentioned, Jack has a whole team on his deck here. So the combination of being really excited, passionate, hardworking about Magic, and having the support network and resources could mean that these are players to really keep an eye on for the next couple of years.
Yeah, one of the key steps that I see Jack taking here and his brothers as well that ends up being really important. So they started showing up at tournaments a few years ago, and they would be playing and playing and mixed results, a couple of good finishes, but really trying, doing it the right way. I mean, kind of using the Reed Duke method, right? Working hard, keeping your head down.
The Reed Duke method is just bashing your head against the wall until something works.
Yeah, exactly. But taking notes about it,
yeah.
Right? Uh-huh. And but one of the key steps that I see these guys making now, and I want to get your take on this as well, is now I see them working with other people, right? It's a Facebook message here and there, a word of support from somebody who maybe you played against who says, hey, you played really well, or maybe you should try doing this sometime, or have you tried this out in your deck? And it's just a little feeler in the community about how hardcore competitive Magic players will talk to each other, and now you see he's starting to actually work with them, right? Mm-hmm. He's starting to get his decks in the hands of other people where they're starting to respect what he's bringing to the table, and that's a huge step because that opens up the door for collaborations across the board.
A trajectory for a normal competitive Magic player is, you learn the game, you start having fun with it, you get competitive, you become one of the best players at your local store. At that point, you think you know everything.
Yes.
You're
are
the best
king.
Player in the world.
Yep.
You don't make any mistakes. You're ready to compete with the pros, everything like that. And then you get a little bit beyond that. You start getting really, really good at the game, and you realize how much more you have to learn. And that stage where you get excited about really mastering the game, about learning from other players, that's where the growth happens. And I think that's exactly where, Jack Kiefer is ready to become a top player, once he puts the work in.
Yeah, absolutely. And he has definitely been doing that. I tell you what, Reed, I'm not betting against any of these Kiefer boys. They really do put the work in, and that's what I like to see when we're talking about long-term prospects out here at the professional level. Here's an ideal start here for Anderson. He's got Glint Sleeve Siphoner on turn 2.
Yeah, you said it, Marshall. Ideal start, especially when paired with the Ether Hub. That
right.
means Jack Kiefer has an immediate window, a one-turn window to kill the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, or else Todd Anderson's going to start getting value.
Yeah, and it does look like that's what's going to happen. A fine start here for Kiefer as well. He's got land into Dusk Legion Zealot, but Todd Anderson already getting an additional card off of the Glint Sleeve Siphoner, and he has a clean attack to get a couple of damage in and another energy roll. And so things looking good for Anderson here on the play in game number 2. Now,
in the first game, it was the Crested Sun Mares that dealt the coup de grace, but really I think the keys to that first game were Ixalan's Binding, taking out cards that Todd Anderson had redundant copies of in his hand, Gonti, Lord of Luxury, and the Scarab God. And, of course, that unlucky moment of Todd Anderson hitting 4 lands off of the Gonti. Those little things added up to really stifle Todd's development, and Jack was able to just overpower him with creatures. I'm curious to see what Todd has done to either diversify his threat suite or come up with an answer to Ixalan's Binding. So far, he's doing a great job with both Glint Sleeve Siphoner and Argel's Bloodfast. Now Gonti, Lord of Luxury, 3 sources of card advantage and ways to progress his board. Kiefer, on the other hand, not so good, missing his 3rd land drop even after the cantrip of the Dusk Legion Zealot.
Yeah, this has been a beautiful curve out for Anderson and is starting to near disaster territory for Kiefer. He needs to hit a land drop here, or it may just be too late. Looks like he's drawn a swamp, so he got there. But that is a lot of value set up on the other side for Anderson after having got a card off of the Siphoner and set to do that again next turn, plus Argel's Bloodfast, ready to fuel the hand if he ever runs out of gas, and he even has Gonti, Lord of Luxury, with a card under it. I mean, he is well set up for the mid to late game already, while we have Kiefer casting Queen's Commission.
Yeah.
Now, these are 2/2 vampires. The Legion Lieutenant there is pumping them, so it's not nothing. But you can't imagine that the Lieutenant is long for this world. It's very fragile, and the blue-black deck has a lot of ways to kill a card like that.
Yeah, even for 1 mana, as we see here. Nope, it's a Duress.
Okay, well, that does get us a chance to see what Kiefer's working with. Looks like he's got his own copy of Duress. What else? A Thopter Arrest.
Radiant Destiny. Wow, that's the Immortal Sun.
The
Marshall.
Immortal Sun is in this deck?
I did not expect to see that one, at least not so
We
early.
just found the deck list, so that came out of the board, I'm assuming.
That's right.
He's got interesting. Wow, that gives him another great late-game engine. And the interesting part about that is that it is very difficult to interact with in the sense that it is not a creature, right? So if your opponent has brought in a bunch of creature removal, it's not going to matter. It's not a planeswalker, so even if Todd has a big board state, it's not like he can attack the Immortal Sun. And he's blue-black. Like, what is he going to do about an artifact?
Yeah, the white-black Vampires deck is great at exploiting that one weakness of the blue-black section of the color pie, which is that they can't remove artifacts and enchantments from the battlefield.
Right. Still, I wonder if Jack is just too far behind here. It was Thopter Arrest that Todd Anderson took away with the Duress. And now Todd is casting his own copy of Queen's Commission. Everybody gets a Queen's Commission today.
Yeah. Todd didn't think to pack his vampire tokens in his deck box this time.
You got to be prepared for everything when you bring Gonti, right?
Yeah.
All right, let's see if we can get another land off the top of the library here. We do. It's a concealed courtyard, though, so a little bit slow. But Jack still has plays this turn.
And actually, Radiant Destiny looks quite nice, making his whole team bigger than the mirror image creatures on Todd's side.
Now, can Kiefer actually get aggro here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 permanents. He does not quite have the City's Blessing. And it looks like he doesn't want to trade off any part of his board at this point.
Part of that,
Gonti doing a good job?
Is Todd did have 1 mana open, so if Jack made an aggressive attack into a potential fatal push for the Legion Lieutenant, it could be a disaster.
Okay.
So he took a more careful route there.
Oh, he's hitting now, kiddos. He just drew another land off the top of the library. Now we're going to see Vraska's Contempt take out the Legion Lieutenant in response to a Duress.
Yep.
And what does he have left?
Oh, all creatures.
Oh, what a beating.
And
Jack
powerful
Kiefer
ones at that.
with the whiff. Swing and a miss for Jack Kiefer. He does have that information which could be useful, but it's also just bad news for Jack, right? I mean, sometimes knowing that your opponent just has 2 awesome cards left in their hand isn't exactly helpful.
Yeah, he cast that Duress hoping to nab something like a Vraska's Contempt, only to find Torrential Gearhulk, which represents Vraska's Contempt plus a 5/6 creature.
Now, I think that Jack has finally attacked. He cast another copy of Radiant Destiny, and he's going to trade and then trade. His
one thing
vampires are 3/3s.
Todd could have done here, which would have been a cool play, is to put that extra vampire token alongside the Gonti.
Yeah.
To just
Snipe
free
a
roll
life.
1 point of life.
Definitely.
always a play to watch out for, especially in limited with these vampire tokens.
Absolutely. And, it could matter. He does have Argwell's Blood Flask. He just used it. That thing can eat away your life total pretty quickly, and one life can sometimes matter.
Absolutely.
Still, you have to like Todd Anderson's spot here still, right?
Yeah, the Bloodfast is just the perfect card for this situation, especially alongside Vraska's Contempt in particular. So Todd gets to balance his turns between, okay, I'll kill your best thing and gain some life. Next turn, I'll refill my hand by spending mana and paying that 2 life that I just recouped.
Interesting for Kiefer. If he does draw an untapped mana source next turn, he will be able to play the Immortal Sun. The question is it too late? Will he be able to actually ride the wave of advantage that card gives you, or is Todd Anderson just too far ahead at this point?
One thing that I do like about Kiefer's deck is if he's able to get a card like that into play with 2 Radiant Destinies and a bunch of cards in his deck that produce multiple 1/1 lifelink tokens, it's pretty hard to actually kill him. Every turn, if he gets to put a couple 3/3 lifelinks into play, how is Todd really gonna outmuscle that?
Yeah, now this is getting a little bit awkward here for Kiefer because he drew Crested Sunmare. But as we know, those Radiant Destinies have to be on Vampire. They will not be on Horse. So that thing will not actually be able to tussle with the Torrential Gearhulk. Anderson says, can I get an Oracle reading on that one last card in your hand? And Jack says, I'll just save you the time and you can read the one I got. Or sorry, he actually has 2 cards in hand. But yeah, this is still not looking great for Kiefer, though. It is not impossible for him to come back. He's a little bit Radiant Destiny flooded. I believe he's got that and the Immortal Sun left in hand.
Radiant Destiny traditionally going to be better for something like a creature mirror match where both players are just flooding the board with creatures, and less effective against a blue-black deck that's trading 1-for-1 a lot and killing a lot of your creatures. You can be left in a situation like this where you have 2 what we call them Anthem effects, Radiant Destinies, but no creatures to pair with them.
Yeah, and in fact has 3 total. Like, he's got that one in his hand, so not really what he wants. So Champion of Wits is going to be the play for Anderson, looking to upgrade his hand. Has he done so? Yeah, it's safe to say he's got a nice one here. He has another Torrential Gearhulk, plus last turn he had drawn a Ballista.
Wow, and perfect. He bins the Glimmer of Genius, setting up for the Torrential Gearhulk next turn.
That is beautiful.
He doesn't really want to spend 4 mana on Glimmer of Genius because he could spend 4 mana on drawing 2 cards just through the Argell's Bloodfast that's in play already. But this is a really nice setup, just putting that card straight into the graveyard.
Ooh, Call to the Feast here, Reed.
9 power and toughness lifelink. Don't mind if I do.
Hey, man, this is exactly what you just described a minute ago, is if Jack can keep on drawing token makers that produce multiple tokens, it actually is hard for Todd to bash through all of this on the ground. His Ballista's not big enough to pick off the tokens individually, and he can even start just triple blocking Torrential Gearhulks.
Yeah, you sure can.
Even double blocking does work.
Funny, you would expect Walking Ballista to be a stone-cold killer of this vampire deck with all the 1/1 tokens, but it does
too small.
Nothing.
No.
It's just
weird.
Almost pathetic on this board.
Yeah, it does look kind of sad. That's the saddest Ballista I've seen in a while. And remember, if Jack doesn't draw land number 6 next turn, at the minimum, he has another Radiant Destiny that could pump those vampires to 4/4 Vigilance lifelink. Each. Like, what is Todd supposed to do about cards like that?
So Todd, head 2 energy, did not use Glint Sleeve Siphoner.
What? Madness.
But yeah, one realistic possibility here. Well,
there's a land.
Realistic in quotes is Jack could play the Immortal Sun here, and then imagine he draws 2 copies of Call to the Feast next turn. They're creating 4/4 tokens now because of the +1/+1 ability of Immortal Sun, and they cost 1 less mana, so he can play 2 in the same turn.
He's attacking.
I would.
I love this.
But it's not going to work out too well.
No.
2 5/6 blockers. But the good news is Jack is going to get a 5/5 horse out of the deal. Actually, a 6/6 horse now that you mention it.
That's
from,
right.
From gaining the life off of these tokens.
That's right. The Immortal Sun doesn't care what type of creature you are. It just says, I'm going to give you +1/+1. It's a benevolent sun, where the Radiant Destiny is a little more choosy. All right, so we're not at the Pro Tour. We don't have the advantage bar. But, Reed, where would you set it right now if you had that in front of you? Because this looks real close to me all of a sudden.
I have to say that things are swinging in favor of Jack Kiefer.
They
now,
aren't they?
Has a lot of games still. He can draw extra cards. He's got some cool stuff going on. If he finds the Scarab God and can stick it in play, he can win. But right now, Jack Kiefer has the Immortal Sun and a tremendously high life total, and Todd Anderson does not have very many ways in his whole deck to get rid of that card.
By the way, he just drew the Scarab God.
Wow, this is going to get interesting.
He currently does not have enough mana to play it and activate it in the same turn. He really doesn't want to expose it to Ixalan's Binding. Remember, Jack's drawing 2 cards a turn now as well.
Todd should know that the last card in Jack's hand is Radiant Destiny. But, yeah, with 2 cards per turn and the black-white deck having, potentially a dozen ways to exile a Scarab God, it is a risky proposition.
And it's one that Todd's not willing to take. And I don't blame him.
One potential long-term way for Todd to win this game is if he can use the Scarab God to return his Gonti Lord of Luxury. There are ways that he could find off his opponent's library to get rid of the Immortal Sun. So maybe a few turns down the road with a little bit of luck, that could happen. But we're still a ways away from that. So Todd going to add the Scarab God to the battlefield and cross his fingers. If he can fade this one turn, things get a lot better for him. 2 cards for Jack Kiefer.
Land. That ain't it. So how bad is this for Jack? He's going to play Radiant Destiny, pass a turn, maybe get another horse, whatever. Is it over? Like Todd gets to activate his Scarab God twice? Can Jack overcome that in a realistic scenario?
He can. Now, the creatures that the Scarab God makes are 4/4s, which when we play a normal game of Magic, that's a big deal. This is not really a normal game of Magic, and it's not that big of a deal because
they're facing
Jack
6/6 horses,
able to potentially make 2, 4, 5 creatures of that size in one turn between the Crested Sunmare, drawing 2 cards per turn, and all these Army in a Can cards that he has, like Call to the Feast and Queen's Commission.
Now, I think that Jack has Ifnir Deadlands.
Okay.
So maybe he's taking a look at the Ballista or the Siphoner. Yeah. He's thinking about it now, though, and this is, again, you can see Jack kind of developing as a player here. He's doing all of this thinking without acting.
You also want to think, if I make an attack, will Todd potentially block in a way where I can kill one of his larger, more important creatures like that Scarab God?
Right. What is the most important creature here? Just the Scarab God, right?
Yeah.
That's the spotlight?
It's typically a pretty bad spot when you have to spend a lot of resources to kill the Scarab God because, of course, it does return to your opponent's hand.
Mm-hmm.
However, with the 2 cards per turn situation, mana being choked for both players, I think it might be something that Jack Kiefer would gladly take if he can do it. So it looks like he didn't get in with the Vampire token, which means he's not going to be able to make a Horse token at the end of the turn.
Interesting decision.
Part of that is Todd could just block the Vampire token with a larger creature and eat it. He could also, if he decided it was better, he could block with Walking Ballista and deal a point of damage somewhere just to make sure Jack didn't get any life.
Sure.
A lot of things to think about on this board.
Yeah, the Vampire's, what, a 5/5 right now?
Vampire is a 5/5, yes.
So not quite big enough to get through a Torrential Gearhulk on its own, for example. All right, we're going to see Gonti Lord of Luxury here.
Okay, so what happened here is Todd resolved his Glint Sleeve Siphoner trigger. That was the card he drew. Now he's in his upkeep before his draw step and is activating the Scarab God.
Yeah, he's going to target Champion of Wits. I was mistaken there. But as we know, this, of course, nets him a lot of extra value because it cares about Champion of Wits' power, which in this case is actually 4. So draw 4, discard 2.
Now he's going to use the triggered ability of the Scarab God to scry 1.
Going to put a land to the bottom. Draws card for the turn. And draws this exact same card he just put on the bottom. Ooh, this has been a good match to kick things off for us, Reed.
Yeah, this is just great. We're seeing cards that we're not used to seeing really complicated board states and two really strong players trying to navigate them. And I don't know who's going to win. That's the best part.
Who do those two torrential gearhulks on the battlefield remind you of? Me and you walking in the building, perhaps?
That's all right. We've got the same great commentary, just a little bit of a change in dress code.
Also known as the T-shirts we stole from the prize wall so that we weren't soaked. Oh, here we go. Consign.
Commit.
Excuse me. Yeah, consign. Oh, that was commit to memory? Yeah, you're right.
Memory,
totally commit to memory. So that means that's going to go back on top of the library, a card down, and that's going to clear the way for a massive attack here from Todd. It looks like Todd has just had too much cards, right? I mean, he's been able to leverage these last two turns into an avalanche of card advantage.
I'll be honest with you, Marshall, from the position where a player gets to draw 2 extra cards on turn 3 and 4 off Glint Sleeve Siphoner, uncontested, the game is well on its way to being decided, and it's definitely to Jack Kiefer's credit that he's been able to fight to an even position. Had a great chance to win if he was able to draw a removal spell for the Scarab God at the right time, but I certainly was expecting Todd to win from that early sort of snowball-y card advantage.
Oh, but he drew Call of the Feast, and of course he gets the Crested Sunmare right now.
Okay, so even despite Todd Anderson's large advantage, it is going to be a long time before he can actually kill Jack Kiefer because of all these giant lifelinking tokens.
He still really needed to find an answer for the Scarab God, but this gives him another turn cycle or so. He's going to attack with both creatures. And Todd knows that he just drew the Crested Sunmare again, so he doesn't want to let him get a free horse. So he's going to make the play that you described earlier, Reed. He's going to block with the Ballista and then sacrifice it to do 1 to Jack. And that means that Jack actually doesn't gain life this turn and will not be getting that free horse on end step. Still, he's got a fine alternate play to make here.
Like Jack tapped Ifnir Deadlands for black mana there, which is, I think, just a little bit of a misstep, but players should make sure they get that life total change. They did.
Yeah, did he have enough mana to do all of this? What are we?
It's because the Immortal Sun
made it cheaper, so
spells.
3 and then 4. Yeah, okay, everything checks out. But you're right, he did actually tap Ifnir Deadlands for black mana. A little misstep there from Jack, it must be said, because he actually has a swamp.
Yeah, and actually, I think they did not get the life total change because the going from 9 to 8 was Todd Anderson's Walking Ballista dealing 1 damage.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it looks like the players are just carrying on here. Maybe, also possible that Jack verbalized. Actually, I'll use this for that and this for, we can't hear them, so.
That's true.
But in the meantime, Todd Anderson, right back to business for him. He's going for Scarab God once again, and once again, he's going to generate a huge advantage thanks to Champion of Wits, and this one is going to really slip away from from Jack if Todd gets to keep doing this over and over again. That said, that Call to the Feast was a massive top deck for Kiefer. Look at the board now.
Massive. Yeah, Todd Anderson might be forced to not attack here and sort of just, okay, I'm going to kill you over the course of a few turns with the activated and the triggered abilities of the Scarab God. If you attack into me, I'm going to use my Defender's Advantage and my 5/6 blockers to try to manage your army. But either way, it's going to be a long time before he can fight through all this stuff.
Yeah, because he has the ability to do that, right? Like he can stay back on defense and block the tokens. But the problem is that Jack goes to like 30.
Right.
Even if he loses his whole board, he's going to take down half of Todd Anderson's board at least, and his life total is going to skyrocket, where a card like the Scarab God is not going to be able to kill Jack on its own using the triggered ability, and Jack can just start attacking if he feels like that's a possibility. So Todd really just doesn't have a great way to finish this thing. And again, if Jack finds an answer for Scarab God, he's in fantastic shape, right? I mean...
Yeah, now we're still in Todd Anderson's beginning phase. He just, did a lot in his own upkeep there, and I saw that he picked up a copy of Negate, which is a huge card from this position, sort of doing a great part to close the door on Jack Kiefer's outs here. But with 2 cards per turn, he could just pick up 2 removal spells, and then the game is completely different.
Oh, there's an Ixalan's Binding. He finally found it, and it's a little too late because of that negate. Oh, so close.
Excellent game here. It's
Yeah,
great to
this
watch.
is awesome, man. I'm super glad we didn't get struck by lightning on the way.
Yeah.
We would have missed this. Those of you just tuning in, welcome along. We're at GP Memphis here. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe. I'm in the booth with Reed Duke. Yes, that is the Immortal Sun on the battlefield.
These are 5/5 Vigilance Vampire tokens, all of them attacking. That's a 6/6 Indestructible Horse.
Are all of them attacking or just the one?
Okay, I guess I misunderstood Jack's body language there. He attacked with only one just to make sure he got a little bit of life gain, both to trigger his Crested Sunmare and to survive for another turn.
He's going to play the Ixalan's Binding, but we know what's going to happen to that. No, sir, says Todd Anderson.
Todd had to reach over to a different section of the table and pick up his massive hand of 100 cards.
He has been
Flip
maxed
through it
out.
to find that negate.
Oh, what a beating. And there's another horse token.
All right, I like making sure to use the Gonti before
Yeah,
the game ends, because remember, this is a rogue deck that Todd's up against, and getting to see a few more cards, more information about both how Jack built his deck and how he sideboarded could be valuable for the third game.
I'm assuming that Jack should be at 10 here.
Jack certainly gained 5 life last turn,
Yeah.
but yeah, now he's losing 4 life due to the Scarab God. Okay, and Jack's had enough.
What happened? Was it trigger enough to kill him? I mean, he wasn't dying on the ground.
No, I guess we had lost track a little bit of the life totals there. and
Yeah, that got
Jack
confusing.
may very well have just decided he was buried, and even 2 good draw steps couldn't save him from that position.
Yeah, but you'd look at the draw steps first, wouldn't you?
Sure.
I mean, I want to know. Like, fair enough if they're not, but he was not dead.
We
at least
also
as
see,
far as the
Marshall,
board
only
state.
13 minutes left for these 2 players to play Game 3.
Oh,
And
yes.
while Todd Anderson was exceedingly likely to win that game, it probably would have taken him a long time to go through all the activated abilities, the
Sure.
tough combat step, casting the spells from his hand of 7 or 8 cards. So I don't blame Jack for just saving an extra minute or 2 off the clock there.
Okay, well, I'll be the one blaming him over here.
Fair enough. So kind of interesting to think about, Marshall. It's not the matchup that we're watching right now, but part of what makes this white-black Vampires deck possible is the exit of Rampaging Ferocidon from the format. It kind of was a shame
Right.
in the old
Oh,
days.
my God. That would be so good against this deck.
Yeah, many of the countermeasures that you would normally turn to beat the mono red deck, you know,
Right.
life gain, flooding the board with blockers. Rampaging Ferocidon was just a trump to all those strategies, but now the door is open to build a deck like Jack Kiefer's
Interesting.
and make use of both the life gain element and the creature swarm
God,
element.
that's a great point. Can you imagine playing a deck with Queen's Commission and Call to the Feast against Rampaging Ferocidon?
I can imagine, because I've done it in limited
Oh,
far too
no.
many times.
Oh, no. Rampaging Ferocidon's just cackling in the corner as you play these cards.
All right, so going to Game 3, challenging matchup, a little bit pressed for time. We're going to see what these 2 players can do, if they're going to change their sideboard or gameplay strategies. One thing that I kind of would like to see that we mentioned a little bit in Game 2 is maybe Jack sideboard out 1 or 2 of those copies of Radiant Destiny, if you expect that the blue-black mid-range deck is going to be very good at managing your number of creatures in play.
All right, I'm hoping to see a nice pace here from our players. 11 minutes left. That's plenty of time to finish a game of Magic, but each of these games has gone relatively grindy, and I think that they can both expect that this is not going to just be kind of a curve-out win unless one person starts really missing land drops or something. So I like this. They're playing quickly. Any 2 drops for you, Jack? Absolutely. His hammer, the
Yep.
Martyr of Dusk.
So he's taken 1 point off of each of these Chef at Dunes activations, but he doesn't mind too much since he has pretty comfortable life total. He's got life gain, and Todd doesn't have a clock yet.
So he should be at 19, is that right?
Yeah, he has taken 2 points and gained 1. You also notice on that second turn, Todd took the damage from the 1/1 vampire token, waited till the end of the turn to decide about what he was going to fatal push. Potentially, if Jack had not played a second creature, maybe Todd would have saved it for something later. But
No.
whatever the case was, he did decide to use it at the end of the turn.
What do you make of this, by the way? Anderson using Fatal Push on the token from Legion's Landing and now on half of a Queen's Commission. He cannot be happy with that.
No, he can't be happy with that. His priority right now is to make sure the Legion's Landing doesn't transform. But he's in a tough spot. It looks like he doesn't have any blue mana. So it might just be the case that he's going to try to use Field of Ruin at the end of the turn to get his island into play and then take it from there. Wow, Queen's Commission. So this is a great start against what Todd has in his hand. It's a start that's extremely resilient to spot removal, and Todd is the only 2 cards he's played this whole game are Fatal Pushes.
Really nice Field of Ruin here for Anderson as well. It's going to fix his mana, getting him the blue mana source he didn't have, and he's going to use it right now to kill one of the Chef at Dunes as well. You do what you got to do.
So Todd can fight back a little bit with a 4th land and a 2/2 Walking Ballista that can block a creature, take out 2 more tokens, but it's a tough way to fight through these little tokens. And with 5 creatures on the battlefield, it looks like Jack Kiefer is going to transform into a Danto.
Interestingly, Walking Ballista once again falls a bit short. And you know what Jack doesn't have here yet that he would absolutely love is any of his Anthem effects.
So what Todd has done here is he's going to take a big hit, and he's going to end of turn Glimmer of Genius. That makes me think that he might be digging to something like
you know what
like
he has?
one of Golden Demise.
Golden Demise, yeah. He actually had that late in the game last game. I'm assuming that he left it in, but I also kind of think that the window for that card to be really good isn't necessarily super wide against Jack. Like he has multiple Anthem effects that can protect his creatures from that card in the late game. In the early game, though, it does seem good. He's digging for it. You see that bottom?
I think he put a Vraska's Contempt on the top there, if I saw correctly.
Oh, okay. Well, he definitely drew one.
I'm not sure
even what
why
wants?
he would do that.
Yeah, he definitely drew one off of it. I don't know if he topped it, but that cannot be what he wants to see at this point, facing 5 creatures that are all about the same. And he certainly doesn't have the time to start using 4-mana removal spells to kill one of them. He's down to 8, and this draw has not lined up for Todd Anderson. Jack Kiefer's going to activate a Danto the first for it. And now he's got 7 power. He could put Todd to 1. Oh, that was Chefette Dunes as well. He could just go for the win. In fact, he already had a Chefette Dunes.
5 mana. 4 mana.
Going to get Cresty up in here? What are we doing?
There it is.
No, there it is. He's going to activate it, and that's game. Jack Kiefer with his black-white Lifegain deck takes down Todd Anderson in 3 and is going to improve to 3-0.
Yeah.
We're going to keep an eye on this deck throughout the course of the day. Like I said, some of the pros in the room are playing it too that aren't him, and they're excited about it. So this could be a really cool deck. What did you make of it?
Well, great showing there. As I mentioned, it didn't seem like the matchup that Jack had designed the deck for, but he was able to dismantle it nonetheless. He's clearly set up against mono red with all the life gain cards. That's going to be one of the top decks in the room. And having a variety of enchantment and artifact-based threats is great against any deck in the blue-black color combination.
Yeah, so I really like where Jack has taken this deck, because if that was his bad matchup, he had a lot of game against a deck like that.
He did.
Now, if you were to think of a deck that would be really good against what Jack is doing? Is there one in the format right now that jumps to mind like, well, he really doesn't want to sit down across from X?
Good question. Potentially Approach of the Second Sun decks, like blue-white, Fumigate, doesn't care too much about little annoying permanents.
Settle the Wreckage?
Yeah, just something that's going to settle the wreckage would be good. Something that's going to ignore the sort of like ground slog type battle that his deck is set up for. There's also particular cards that players may or may not be bringing that would be really good. Something that comes to mind is River's Rebuke. It's a card you used to see when the Abzan and Black-White Tokens deck were really popular, but maybe potentially has fallen a little bit out of favor with the changes in the format. We'll see.
Okay. Yeah, I still we've seen different takes on a tokens build like this before, right? I mean, it's not like this is the first time we've ever seen this type of deck, but this is the first time we've seen it in this type of configuration, especially with the Crested Sunmares, which are the kind of exciting card that you don't see that often in Standard.
Yeah, it's a perfect fit, though. I mean, it just pairs great with all the lifelink cards, and I think Jack Kiefer's put together something pretty nice here.
And that, I mean, do you view that as the kind of over-the-top card in his deck, or, you know, I'm trying to think of like, what does the deck focus on? Like, we know it's early game plan, right? It's got a bunch of small creatures, and it has the ability to pump them, but then it has a Crested Sunmares in there. But then also we saw a card like the Immortal Sun, not a card I expected to see on the battlefield this weekend.
And that you just mentioned, combined with the fact that this is a completely rogue deck, players haven't practiced against it, that's one of the major strengths of a matchup like the one we just watched against an opposing mid-range deck. It makes it really challenging to sideboard against, and in Game 3, the cards that Todd Anderson left in his deck just matched up woefully badly against
terrible.
Jack Drew.
Yeah. All right, well, guess what? We've got Jack down in the feature match area. Let's have a chat with him. Jack, hey, buddy. What's up? It's Marshall and Reed Duke. How are you doing?
Good.
Hey, so you built this deck. I know you got a few of the pros in the room on the deck as well. Tell us how you started building this thing.
So basically this entire Standard format I've been playing with different iterations of my Vampires decks. So I started out with like the rare kind of cards in a Danto Vanguard. And what I like about my version of the deck now is a lot of the creatures are 2-for-1s, and they don't get... the like fatal pushes aren't going to deal with the whole card when you play them.
Yeah, you've got a lot of the token makers, the Queen's Commissions, and the Call to the Feast, and then we also saw the extra spicy Martyr of Dusk in there. How did that one make the cut?
It's kind of my replacement for a Danto Vanguard. That card's very good, but it's not exactly what I want to be doing this style of the deck. I just kind of want the card that sticks around and is a vampire.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, when it comes to matchups-wise, Reed and I were kind of theorizing about how your deck does, and we thought, okay, against the red deck, looks pretty darn good. How would you figure your matchup would go against a deck like the one that Todd played this round, a blue-black kind of control/mid-range deck?
So basically, I try to go bigger because I have cards like Profane Procession and Immortal Sun that can deal with those cards. And just in general, the deck can also be fast and just go wide.
Man, you have Profane Procession in there too?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Reed, we saw a lot of different ways that Jack had to exile cards. That seems to be kind of a focus in Standard right now. How much of that was in your mind, Jack, when you were building this deck? We saw the Ixalan's bindings and stuff like that too.
Yeah, I definitely need a way to deal with Scarab God because like Fatal Push, that card's very good, but it does not deal with Scarab God. So I have Ixalan's Binding, Thought Duress, those kind of cards to deal with it.
All right. Well, Jack, awesome stuff. We love what you've done with the deck, and we're going to be keeping an eye on you for the rest of the day. Good luck the rest of the way through.
Thank you.
Yep. So cool stuff, and again, really fun to be able to build your own deck, even get a few other players on it. And I'm telling you, I know I am, and I'll be keeping you, of course, involved as well as we work our way through the day, keeping an eye on it and see how it does. You never know with the brew. Sometimes you have a good start and it falls apart. Sometimes you broke it, and all of a sudden you're winning the tournament. We'll keep an eye on Jack and the other guys running that deck. For now, though, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have more live magic for you here from GP Memphis.